Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Various Fields. I am Trey.
I'm Lex.
And I'm Hazen Fields II.
And today we're talking, wait, before we get into it, I just want to know, Dad, why are you looking like you're part of a cult? I don't understand this.
What?
That was cultural then.
What do you mean?
You have something, would you mind just,
Can
you
you
have
see?
a hood on, don't you?
Oh my gosh, you know what? I didn't even. Oh my gosh. Well, maybe I should just take it off. Yes, I'm your father, son. Yes, I am, and I'm your father.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, can we give ourselves a hand for that bit? Here we go. Very good.
Round of
You're
applause.
allowed to do
Oh,
Probably nobody else is.
It's weirder when you applaud yourself for the bit. That's.
Well, I did that to show, and that you might have noticed that something's missing.
That's right.
That's right. I no longer have my dreads. Now, this might not mean anything to somebody. You know, I never thought about that. This may be a first-time person watching this going, I don't get it. You know, and so, but I used, and so therefore I'm going to lie a little bit. I used to have long, luxurious dreads that filled my hair. No.
You did it, actually.
Well, I did at one point in time. But what I started to notice, ladies and gentlemen, and this kind of brings us to the top. What is the topic that you
The
want?
topic of today, I'm glad you brought that up,
Mhm.
is about letting go. So we could talk about this story and find out more.
Letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concept was, what was happening was, I am a man of a certain age, and in tradition of my family, there becomes an area of the head that sometimes will have less real estate as the other portions of your head. You know, so therefore, it happens. You know.
Mhm.
So what was happening was, as my dreads were growing, volume with great volume on the side. You know, the centerpiece was a little bit lackluster. You know, it was kind of like you know, some voting districts.
Mhm.
And this is why. Exactly. So I was trying to compel the middle of my head to vote, and they could not come out as much as they should. So therefore, it started to look awful strange, kind of like a friar tuck from the Greater Antilles, you know, Jamaican friar tuck, you know. Robin, what you doing, you know? Don't be stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, because those who have real accents probably, that was horrible. Anyway, that's what I did. So I decided to give it the old brush cut.
Yes.
Now tell me honestly, I'd like you to let me know, how do you feel about it? Remember, you do get an inheritance. So
Let's go.
I didn't say it was a bigot.
Like, to be fair, like, you still are my dad, so I see you just fine. I don't understand.
It's great.
Wow.
We're still.
That plane landed so gently.
Like I don't really see you for your hair. I see you for who you are. You know what I mean? So I don't
my
really,
goodness, but
like,
okay.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, I'll give you that
So
one.
it's
You got
the wrong station.
And you, sir?
Well, that's fantastic. I think you never let me get it. The dreads. I was dreading it.
Oh, well done.
See, submitted.
Well done. Very good. Good. Well,
okay, gotcha.
but that being said, my son had brought up a concept of, actually, Nels had
That's
started with the
correct.
concept.
Yes.
Let's hear it for Nels. Clip it, clap. Nels is the man, I guess. I think when he saw me coming into the studio, I think his word was, "Gah!" Anyway, so
Who that there?
Who that?
Who that there?
Who that said who that when I say who that? No, he did not do that. No, he was very polite, very, very nice, and but he did bring up the topic of letting go,
Right.
and we started to think about that as a group. And what does it mean to let something go, as opposed to giving up?
That's fair. And it's interesting because I believe we actually had a small conversation about this earlier on in our
We did.
We did.
series. Right, but I'm appreciative of always bringing something back into light to kind of like expound on the conversation. I don't believe that in terms of your hair, I like, I guess basically in this moment, it's not so much letting go, but I guess moving on and transitioning into a
Yes.
new door, you know,
Letting-
or a new level of life, you know.
Right.
So
letting go, giving up, moving on, those are all aspects, I'd say. I think the difference between at least moving on and or letting go also is like, I think giving up, there's a part of it that an individual still very much they want for themselves. It's like stopping your own
Right.
self potential. Well, letting go could be I've recognized that this is no longer what it was to me. And maybe I'm not capturing the exact feeling anymore, but I'm capturing the idea of it. And if you can let go of the idea of something, I feel like that's different than giving up.
Right.
And moving on, you could just be like, yeah, I'm good.
Well, a lot of times, you know, like when you are doing something like, you know, you're doing something for years, like growing your dreads and stuff like that, and it's becomes, some people make it part and parcel with who they are.
yeah.
You know, and it's hard when you start to be recognized for that trait. When you start, you know, so you start to believe that which you have is that which you are, which is slightly different, I think. You know, so what happens, or is greatly different, and so what happens is when you know, take off that, you know, like hair or you know whatever it is, you know, it's interesting how people will change, which is different when weight. You know, people kind of like if you take off a great deal of weight. Well, some people may be shocked by it, but when you take off weight, people applaud that. But hair is something like, you know, people don't necessarily applaud quite the same way. So it's like the social standards, depending upon whatever culture you're in, are different. You know, I mean, you know, there are people around the world that if you have, you know, what we call beauty, is different in different cultures.
That's true. This is the question for you then. Did it feel like letting go when you cut your dreads? Get your dreads cut?
Well, no, I think that I had to deal with a couple of, well, for my personal thing, there was a couple of things to consider. Number one, those who don't know it, I am now at this point in my life, I am really strongly trying to pursue the arts, theater, and that requires me to, you know, go to auditions and things of that nature that I'm, you know, that are up and coming. So what happens when you have dreads? That it does kind of put you in a box as I'm gonna let you play the guy with the dreads, or they have to create some type of wig that makes my head look gigantically bigger, you know, something like that. You know, and you know, so those are things to consider. But now with the theater, it gives me a level of versatility.
Okay.
You know, depending upon the ingeniousness of the makeup crew or what have you.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives me a baseline. So that was one thing to consider. On the other side, honestly, it just started to look peculiar after a while for me. You know, and go back to some of the other videos of us, and when you can go, huh. So I wanted to cut it off before people started coming to me and saying, you know, you know, I didn't want absolutely disgust, but you know, you want to do, you know, so it's like I'd rather people go, oh my, you did it, huh? You know, that kind of thing. It's a little different.
Nipped your hair in the bud.
Wow. Yes, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I would like to go back a little bit to like you were saying a little bit of the cultural aspects of like letting go of the dreads, and I understand that every culture that you know dons the hairstyle, there's a little bit of difference in understanding, but particularly for me in my personal journey, right? You can call this a cultural aspect or not. There is an understanding of like. Particularly, especially I would imagine for those who actually wore dreads, there's an understanding of like, you know, when you started your journey,
Right.
you know, and you understand almost, and not day by day, but you understand the points in time where you lived with dreads,
Yes,
all right? So you kind of, as they grew on you, you kind of understand your own personal growth in the midst of those times.
That's true.
So you can kind of like see yourself like, oh yeah, I remember, oh it was fun, it was stylish back in the day. Like when I did mine, I really want to say 2012 is when I officially started dreading my hair. And you know, I was just graduating college then, you know, so I'm very much from then to now a very different person than when I was, right? So it becomes a little bit more than just a style piece, because we weren't really raised in a vain house, one who takes glamour or our physical appearance into like, oh, I got, like, mind you, we all stay in hygiene and everything like that, obviously. Right? But it's not like, oh, we don't stand hours at a time, at a day, at a week in front of a mirror.
Speak for yourself. I was the epitome of fashion.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. Right?
Yes,
So I
that's a
understand.
good fashion pose.
For a lot of people, there could be very much a fashion piece, right? But I think they kind of shorten the value of what dreads really stand for, in my opinion, if they just keep it as a style. You know, it should be something that quite literally grows on you as you find growth within yourself. And that's how I see dreads. So you letting go is not so much a, oh my gosh, who are you? Are you even my father? I can't even recognize you. It's not even so much about recognizing you. It's like, what do you recognize about your transition, about yourself, right? Should you be recognizable from when you started the whole transition?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I think you and I share the same mindset as it pertains to dreads. Dreads, indeed, for me, was almost a response to society. Because when I grew up, you know, being an African American male, there were hairstyles that we were told were appropriate. In other words, your natural hair growth. In fact, it was so sad. If you think about the sadness of growing up in the 60s and 70s, and the sadness, but some of the things that we had to deal with, such as when you grew your hair out, society, particularly that were not from our culture, would say that your hair was unruly, or your hair is wild, or you even, God forbid, we utilize the term nappy, you know, and so therefore, what would be the opposite? You know, if your hair is unmanageable, then the opposite would be true, that the other hair that is not like yours indeed would be manageable. Those who would have hair that would blow in the wind, you know, because their hair is straight and not, you know, curly as ours. You know, we started using language that suggested that you know, it was slick, because they would say blondes have more fun. Now, a great deal of our community, we don't have naturally blonde hair.
Right.
You know, and our hair does not flow in the wind. So you'd see someone driving in their car. My father even mentioned that. He thought they were having fun, because you'd see the commercials and the hair flowing. And as opposed to saying that our hair that was in the wind stands the test of it and be able to be strong. You know, it's how it was phrased. So therefore, you thought that your hair was not good. That's why a great deal of people in our community went through many years of I'm going to use the word I don't want to say self-hate, but looking at yourself in such a way that you thought you were lesser than. So back in the 60s, people found ways to make concholine, which was like taking potato. And some kind of, have you ever watched the story of Malcolm X? Malcolm X, they made this device which was essentially doing making your hair straight. So, but it was using chemicals that were like made out of nothing. You know, people would make potatoes and stuff like that somehow or another and burn their scalp. We went through a lot of periods of burning our scalp. We would straighten our hair with hot hair combs. You know, because our hair was not normal as what people we do, you know. So but we convince ourselves, no, I'm doing it because I like my hair this way. You know, but really what was being said, and it's true, and those who decide to straighten their hair, please, I'm not suggesting that you don't enjoy it, because we have flexibility to do either one. But the point is, a great deal of it started from not being confident in ourselves in reference to even get employed. I was told. I feel like am I controlling this whole thing?
No, I'm just listening.
I remember I was told as a child, you know, you keep your hair at a certain length. When your hair grew out, and if you went to a job interview, I know my mother was like, you know, you don't want to make it too big. You didn't want an afro.
You're right.
We call it an afro. In fact, we started to, as a people, change the name of the afro to let society know, and you had to say with a, this is called a natural. So it wasn't called an afro at one point. When it was called, we said it's a natural. Why was it a natural? Because naturally, if you let your hair grow out and you're African American, your hair will be, you know, an afro of sorts. You know, so there's a lot in dealing with our appearance in society and how to be status quo was the word I was looking for.
Mm.
You know, what is acceptable in this setting. So African American journey dealt with a lot of that. So cutting it and growing it was a statement of like not rebellion, but like saying, you know, I will not be told, you know, what is right, because I actually had an encounter at my actual job that I worked at with a gentleman who was not a part of our community, and they said, I heard you were thinking about getting those things in your hair. Now this is not a hyperbole.
Right.
This is what I was thinking about. And they actually told me these are things, you know, people say, are you making this up? No, they actually told me, well, I don't think people are going to take you seriously if you grow those things in your hair. At that moment, I had decided, I had very little hair growth, but I told the lady that was doing my hair, I said, I don't care what you do, you twist it. Whatever it is, if there's nothing to twist that. Pretend to twist, because I was, you know, at that point it was something else. So, but you know, that's another dag nabbit moment. We've talked about it before. African American people,
Right?
you know, I'm having a meeting with you as a man, and you're going to talk about dag nabbit. So they gotta go. But anyway, that was a lot.
No, that's your version of letting go of society.
And I appreciate you kind of sharing that with us, kind of like taking that off your chest, letting go, as it were. You know. So, I guess with my own transition, there is. I didn't have so much pushback because as we were growing up, there has been a lot of the reclaiming of the natural look, right? You see a lot of people growing out like saying like, oh, I shaved all my hair off, and just to see it grow out more healthy, more naturally. There are a lot of people that have dyed their hair, and so no, I realized that was bad for my head, so I'm gonna shave it off and restart all over again. And a lot of people on TikTok, a lot of people on Facebook, like you see hairstyle journeys of a lot of different people that do this, right? But I wasn't really doing this again for style, right? Again, I grew up with my Uncle Danny and my father as symbols of what it ought to be, right? To kind of like grow and what those stand for when you're when you have dreads, right? So it really was just an option of like, should I not? And then when you do put on your when you put on this when you take on this lifestyle, right? There is an awareness of self that kind of dawns on you, right? And it's almost automatic with the first twisting, right? Because you have these transitions almost like from caterpillar to full-on butterfly, and we acknowledge the fact that you are still transitioning even after the first shave and the second shaving, right? But those that are always afraid when they're first starting with the tiny locks, right? And people are like, oh man, I need to hide my hair, keep it wrapped up, and stuff like that, because it doesn't look appealing, right? And and to be fair, like I didn't really care for that. I wore them out. People laughed at me, absolutely, right? But at the end of the day, right, it was just part of the transition, right? There were times when I thought maybe I should shave these off. Maybe I can like just not wear them out, right? And see what happens like with longer hair. Maybe I should straighten them out with all the Disney Channel stars doing the same exact thing, you know? But like at the end of the day, it was just part of the transition, right? And now I'm seeing a whole lot of people kind of like put on weave or what have you, or maybe like wig caps that make it look like they have dreads and then take them off for the day. I'm like, again, great style, right? I'll never dismiss the style, right? But I feel that they're missing the point of dreads, in my opinion, if they are taking the shortcut, you know, and just wearing the dreads out.
Indeed.
You know what I mean? But again, I'm not trying to be an elitist in any kind of way.
Not at all.
All right, it's more just how I saw them. You know, everyone had a journey to go through, and that was very much a journey of yourself, right? When you start off, like, where were you when people were ridiculing you and your dreads are only about a song in your finger? Where were you when they reached your shoulder, right? What were your concerns then? Where were you when they hit the back of your back? Right? And like where were you then and where are you now, right? And as you trim them, groom them, tighten them, have your good moments and your bad moments, very much like the rings of a tree, you see yourself age, right? And then you realize that there is there's a journey being told. There's a lineage in your dreads, right? That's like within yourself, right? So a lot of people that also take the spiritual aspect understand that these kind of feel like antennas, right, to like an more of an actual understanding, an astral, spiritual self, right? It's not someone to judge you outside. It's always for you to kind of like perceive yourself and your growth from the inside, and that's how I saw dreads, right? There was actually a moment in time when I was actually thinking about cutting my dreads, but the missus said no. She said she will divorce me. Right? And that's when I began to question, are these dreads for me?
No.
But it's still a choice that I can allow myself to make in the future.
Okay.
So again, it's just how I see the journey.
To be honest, you guys are so inspiring, because not only have you inspired my dreads, you've inspired me to remind the audience that we are so good at letting go. We don't stand to the stereotypical standards of staying on topic. Because now we're letting go. I'm talking about letting go, and that's the truth now. So if you're enjoying this conversation about letting go, remember, nothing needs to be as it is, and nothing needs to stay in one spot. You can let go and change things in the moment if you feel is right. And I feel right now we should be talking about hair and dreads, because you guys have inspired me. And I need to do a better job at it. Because, one of the biggest things, one of the reasons why I didn't, because I would have been the latest in the game, because I'm just starting these, because you got them around 2012. And I think I got these just maybe last year, or about ago, but you would have had them around 18, 20 when you got your dreads?
Give or take. Yeah.
And I would have gotten mine around like 28. So I would have been latest of you guys to get them. And my biggest thing is I've always been bad with self-maintenance, I think. So like dreads are a big responsibility, or getting twisted. So I started small, figure out what I'm doing, try to do twist on that type of stuff. And the interesting thing is, one, the person that I was going to, which was my brother, I can't get in contact with as much anymore. But two, my thing is like I've also been, now that they're not exactly how I thought they'd be, instead of getting them cut, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna let them grow, see what they do, and I've been experimenting with them just as they are, doing the whole natural thing, and then getting them twisted. But it is kind of a moment, because when I first thought about getting them cut, like, I'm not going to do it, there was like this immediate resistance. Like, I'll get these cut. But it looks so odd. What is that? Anyways, I'm going to get them cut. But what else can you do? What can you become? Huh? And it's really weird, because like immediately I start doing this, and now there is a responsibility that comes with it.
Well, I have to say, honestly, now I know these are my sons. So I love their hair. We got 7 minutes. I love their hair, and because it is an extension of who they are. Lexington's journey is different than Trey's, and as well mine is different than the both of them. And letting go of something in terms of what you choose to, how you want to present yourself, or things that you've been doing, it becomes a preparation of self, of saying, what is it that I would feel about myself once I let something go. There are a lot of things that people let go of. Man, I hate to
Bad time to be lots of words. Spoons.
No. Well, I was going to go into things that I don't know, but sometimes they're relationships.
Right.
Sometimes people, there may be someone watching us now, actually debating. Is this relationship good for me? And I have a difficult time talking about relationships that way, because I know it's a tough place to be when you have to determine what's going to happen. It could be your job. It could be your job. Maybe the environment has become hostile, or maybe what you believe to be something that you went to school for. And you said, man, I went to school for that, but I find that in the actual doing of it, my mother used to say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So while you're doing it, now you feel that it's not what you wanted, or it's not making you the money that you wanted.
Right.
It could be a lot of things that you have to let go of. Sometimes there are things we have to let go of in reference to ourselves, in reference to hurts that we might have had, situations that have made us feel something. There's a point where, in order for us to get up and get out and get into society, I may be oversimplifying it, but letting go sometimes is important for us to be able to move forward.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways of letting go, and we at various fields are suggesting to you by example and by our words that you will be magnificent who you are, where you are, wherever you are, if you look inside yourself and say, I'm magnificent, I'm fine, and so therefore those things that you let go of, those things that you let go of, those things that are attachments, never let them define you.
Right.
You don't be defined by the things about you,
Right.
but be defined by the things about you.
Nice.
I like that a lot. It's just about the energy, also about what you want to spend time on. I also consider myself someone who chased a lot of ghosts in my past, and those ghosts are ambitions that might have been useful, or it might have been something that I was praised on when I was at a younger age, and I'm realizing that I can't really do that anymore because of my knees or whatever the case may be. But there's a lot of things that you should realize that, does slip by because of time, right? You might be in a point in life or in a point or like a location in your life that you literally cannot do a thing any longer, So if you wish to pursue that, that is completely up to you to decide whether or not it should be pursued or not. Right? You always have to really kind of consider, what do you look like at the end of that pursuit, right? Is it a worthwhile endeavor, or is it something that you're just wasting time chasing? And this is not, again, to say like, oh, stop what you're doing right now. It really just becomes the focus of like, what makes you better in the long term. Like for me personally, and I talk about this a lot, being an artist, right? I always want to be a better, someone who's better at digital media. Again, art has constantly evolved, even nowadays with AI art trying to catch up with those Beep Bop Joneses, But, there's something that makes me that I enjoy about constantly drawing and constantly making the untangible tangible, that I enjoy. Right, so that's my personal pursuit. And should I stop drawing right now because I cannot draw like an AI bot? Not really, no. Should I stop trying to do one-on-one games with a 22-year-old now that I'm in my 40s? Maybe so. Right, it really just depends on what your pursuit is. What are you trying to prove to yourself, right, in that pursuit? And that's how you really should consider it.
You got it.
And with wrapping up, I'd say I think also don't be scared of not just letting things go, but picking them back up to give yourself mental flexibility. I think sometimes you get so stuck on, once I've picked it up, this is my thing forever. Once I let it go, I've dropped it forever. But your life is your life. You can do it, change it, and honestly, once you do it more frequently, you get good at bouncing back, picking things up, and having freedom of range, not just in terms of actual skills or ability, but also I would say like mental acumen, being open-minded, saying I can let this thing go when I want to, when it doesn't benefit me, and I can pick it back up when I need it to again, and that gives you mental freedom. And speaking of letting things go, we will let you guys go now, because this seems to be the end of our podcast. I am Lex.
I'm Hazelfield II.
And I am Trey. We'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because I think we let that one go.
Thank you for being with us here at Various Fields.